And so those are together now. So what I used was a 4:1 thixotropic structural adhesive around the edges and through those troughs, and I put that into a syringe so I could apply it nice and accurately. I had to refill that 2 or 3 times. Then I used that Gorilla Glue around on where the mating faces of the foam were. I spread that round. Now with that polyurethane glue you can use water, so I put some water in this little spray bottle to act as a bit of a catalyst to help foam up that glue nicely to fill up all the voids. So now we've got to wait till tomorrow to unmold them, demold them. Well, at least this part's come out pretty well. There's your wing. So I'm currently trimming up this wing now. The most important thing when working on a nice polished wing is you either mask the whole thing again, or you work on a nice soft surface and keep vacuuming at every step of the way. So I am choosing the latter option. I am slowly trimming off this trailing edge with a sharp knife. The carbon does dull the knife reasonably quickly, so using a snap off blade I can keep snapping off another section and get a nice sharp edge again. Now I'm doing some leading edge sanding, so I have a few blocks. Definitely use a block for this, and it's just a matter of slowly bringing back any bits flashing from the edge of the mould line. Now when I do control surfaces in this mould, you can see that I actually have the elevator line marked out in the mould. Now my favourite tool to use when I'm doing control surfaces is one of these small hacksaws, because the blade is around about 1/2 millimetre or just a bit more thick, which means, like, I think it's actually about 0.8. I can make a nice cut in my control surfaces, mainly for the clearance point. You see it makes quite a nice cut. It goes through to where the hinge needs to go, and that's the next thing, is cutting it where the hinge goes. That's the slightly harder bit. It's cut now at the control surface locations. So now I'm cutting out the surfaces, and when I cut out the surfaces, this is my little setup. I literally have a couple of little silicon blocks with a rod and a little slider bit that goes back and forth along it, in which I place my Dremel. I then just have a couple of bit of bar stock with some 12-watt batteries to hold it down. That doesn't move very easily at all. I can then go along and set my cutter at the desired angle. I like having it come in a little bit. You'll see why in a second. And then I can follow along and cut out my hinge slots. There we go. We have the initial cut done. I say initial cut because there's a few more cuts to do on these yet. Some of you may have seen, because it's a foam core wing, some of you, and I'll actually recommend you to go and have a look at my how to cut control surfaces on a foam cored wing. I'll basically be following that process. So I'm just finishing up cutting the surfaces on this wing. Now I've got the elevator cut out, and we've got that slipping under nicely under the top skin, bottom skin rather. So not much of a hinge gap, plenty of actuation to throw. Yep. Nice. Now it's time to do some trimming work on this fuselage. So I need to cut out the canopy opening. I need to cut out a hole in where the wing seat's going to go and the cable's going to go through. I've already started trimming up where the tailplane goes in. I need to trim off the back of the fin. I need to clear the elevator outer pushrod outer, get the pins out of that, and then clean up the seam. So we're going to start with the canopy opening so we can see what's going on inside. So when I trim out these, I literally just go around and inside where I'm going to finish up the trim lines. You can see where the trim line scribed in the mould here. We go inside that. I just do straight line cuts. I'll pop this out, and then we can go around with another tool and clean up those edges a bit nicer. You can see inside our fuselage, you can see we've got a nice consolidation around the seam. That's the end of the push rod outer, which is glued down there, and there's a pin plug which I can pull out quite happily, hopefully. Alright, so I've been around now and I have chopped out with the Dremel the servo covers where those are going to be, so they're all pretty marked in the mould. And then I've gone around with this tool here, which is something which is not too sharp, gets rid of the foam nicely, and has machined me some nice servo pockets in the foam. And you can see through there the tube which I ran earlier to run all the wires. And then I put a hole in the centre, so I follow those tubes through and match that up with the hole in the centre here. It's all been deburred, so it's not going to chafe any wires, not too sharp. Yeah, and those tubes come out into the centre here. And so your wiring loom can feed out through that hole there. I've trimmed up the fuselage, the canopy opening is all done, the wing opening is done, back of here is all done, all the seams are done. Next step is to glue in the wing mounting plates. So I'll put some aluminium blocks and glue those in front and back. Then I'll jig the whole aircraft up and get things all square, and then through drill through the wing, which has some hard points installed in it if you remember from the layup. Through that, and I'll countersunk some holes, and then I will tap into the aluminium for the wing bolts to thread into. And apart from that, I am not using that canopy. That canopy didn't come up very well. I had more paint issues and I tried to glue it back on and it didn't work. So I have another canopy somewhere, which I've finished up as well, and I've just been trimming up to try and get to fit appropriately on that. Yeah, then I'll probably also run some positioning, some channels through, and glue some horns in before sending it away to Daniel, who is getting this. Probably one of the prettiest looking waxes that's ever been made. Yeah, hopefully he enjoys it. Yeah, now that I'm pushing ahead, I haven't been doing as much video as I would have otherwise. But what I've done is I've got these pre-machined aluminium sort of discs. They get glued up underneath. You can just see it under there. And then I'll screw and tap into those for the wing mounts. Meanwhile, I have finished the hinges on the elevator, obviously. Like I said, please check out my cutting control surfaces video in a bagged wing. It also works for the foam core molded wings as well. So that articulates nicely, and I've glued a servo horn in, which I've cut out of some G10 in a position that it needs to be to get the desired travel. Next thing to do is to mark out where the horns are going to be on the opposite side, because I'm going to run the control rods through from the servo here through to the top. So this is the same way I've done it on other planes before. So the servo sits in there, the push rod then goes through to the top like that on a cross angle. This one here was done excessively. It can be done a lot lower profile than what I've done there, like on my kinetics, etc. Obviously you can see how the tail is done here as well. So my method to get the control rods coming in the right place is I put a piece of tape along where that servo push rod is going to go. I'll straighten that up a little bit. There. Then I can wrap it through to the other side a little bit, and that will show me where that goes. So when I come back on here, I know my control push rod needs to be where the tape is, so I can mark out and chop and glue in that servo horn, so the control horn in that location. So now it's time to mark up my servo horn. As you can see here, I've got my aileron horn. That's going to go in line with that bit of tape. So it's also going to line up with the hinge line there. So my servo position is going to be, control horn position is going to be along here. Move it over a little bit, so I know it's going to fit and that point there. Next thing I do is I grab the Dremel, I grab a nice size cut-off wheel so I can get in there, and it's a case of getting it out. drill gets me a nice straight cut, and then following that up, I use a little 1/16 or a 2mm carbide burr, and that works quite well for clearing out the rest of the slot of the hole. There we have it. Now I can see through to the Kevlar strip and the carbon on the other skin, and our control surface horn. It's a little bit tight, I might just take a bit more out. There we go, nice. See if it's in there. Now you can see that this here now, hits the wing. So we have to mark out a wee cutout for the push rods to come out, and allow the clevis to also clear. So we need to cut out a wee cutout like that. The wing skin. So again, here's the Dremel. Now you can see there we have a nice access channel through for the horn and the push rod to go through. What I can do, and what I like doing, is heating up a bit of rod. I think rod that will do. Clearance for that to come through and engage onto that horn. Like so. Let's connect it up to show the viewers exactly what I'm talking about. So I like to actually put these onto my horns first before I glue in the horns, because when you do that, you can get it perfectly in place. It's really hard to hook up the clevises afterwards. Make sure it's sitting right down. You can see there that I'm getting a little bit of binding on just in here, so I'm going to have to chop a bit more of that out yet. What I'll do, once I've measured all this side up and I know exactly what lengths I need to go for all these parts to fit in, there we go. Now we've got clearance for the clevis quite happily. Easy peasy. So that's the length I need to be for both sides. So I also laser cut out some servo hatches out of some 250 micron mylar. So these fit perfectly flush with the mould, the wing surface, and they'll get taped on once the servos are installed. So yeah, it makes the bottom of the wing look nice and tidy. So I'm definitely getting a bit of slack on my video making now, but I have all my servo push rod channelways plus the slots cut for the servo control horns, or the control horns. So they're all done in all four positions on the wings. I've just clamped the wing on here and through drilled with a 4.2 mil, ready to go through with a tap. So I've just tapped through the fuselage here. I have a bit of sanding to get the wing to fit a bit more snug as well. And I've gone through, and you can see in there hopefully that I've tapped through into those aluminium blocks that I've put in previously. So now I just need to go through the center wing here with a clearance drill. So I need to go through with 5 mil and then put a countersink in. Right, let's try these wing bolts on for the first time. That was bottoming out. So I'm pretty sure the shank, this screw here, has a little bit of straight shank here, which I'm pretty sure is bottoming out there, so I need to find another one. And so that is pretty much that. I am going to send this airframe now off to its new owner, and he'll put out the rest of the servos in it, glue the tailplane on, and yeah, glue the servo horns in and put the push rods through to the servos. So that is all ready to be fitted out. That is pretty much most of the parts you need to know of how to make a composite glider.